elevate. This is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Oh, good morning, Canada. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday morning. I'm already seeing the chat now. It's sad. It's rainy in some parts of the country, and, well, everything sucks. Yes, that's what we are getting this morning as we have an NDP member who crosses the floor to join the Liberals, the evil empire. And everyone's got feelings. This happened last night. I was trudging social media for a few hours before bed, which was a very bad idea because I couldn't sleep at all. And I was thinking and racing through my mind, what does this mean for our nation? What does this mean for Canada? What does this mean for our immediate politics? And of course, you know, I may have had a little one who decided not to sleep at all last night either. So I slept in this morning, was late getting to researching and getting things together. And, well, now you get a sleep-deprived Josh. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun one today, folks. And I'm going to try and move over a tad bit because this framing is off. But this is where we're at. We have now, we have 2 seats away from majority now with this floor crossing. And we have emotions and feelings about this. And I'll be straight up with you right now. Yes, do not mix up my demeanor for what the seriousness this brings to us as a country. I can acknowledge that this is getting into ugly territory. And with a government that continues to take more and more power, centralize more authority, and tries to tell you what to do, what to think, and how to feel. I'm not going to at all try to sugarcoat that. It's ugly. It's getting into scary territory. And we're going to talk about that today. However, I also want to strike the right chord and the proper chord that all's not lost either. There are still things that you can do. So there's 2 things you can do. You can sit and wallow in pity. And, you can take a note from the Grinch, wallow in self-pity at about 2 o'clock. You can do that. Or you can decide to take action, and we are going to align what those actions can be today. And I, for one, if you know me, I fight. I'm a fighter. I don't go down. I don't go into the darkness with a whimper. We have been working and preparing for this situation for quite some time now. We have as a show been preparing for this because now what's going to happen? Well, April 13th is going to come. And we're going to have 3 by-elections. We have, as I said, University of Rosedale, Scarborough West, and Terrebonne. 2 in Ontario, in GTA, and then 1 in Quebec. And 2 of those 3 are likely to go Liberal. Some are saying, well, Josh, anything can happen. We might be able to flip them. I mean, you might. You flipped Charles St. Paul's when Trudeau's at the depths of his deep unpopularity. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So we're going to play what's likely going to happen here and not try to gloss over this too much. That yes, Liberals are probably going to take those 2 ridings in the GTA. And then Terrebonne will be a toss-up. We'll see what happens there. So April 13th concludes. We officially have a Liberal federal government that has been achieved by floor crossings for the first time in our country's history, by the way. And there's a lot of conversation on social media about this, isn't there? A lot of people wondering what's the point of voting. I'm seeing a lot of tapping out. I've been seeing a lot of tapping out, and understandably so. I understand why, because if I get to vote for someone who just gets to switch their party, then why do I bother voting? That's a very reasonable critique for people at this present time. And then there's the other side of the left who just they can't see past 3 feet in front of them. So they just see red team winning and they are celebrating in the streets, and then dunking on conservatives who are upset and bringing up issues with what we are currently watching. And you're seeing a lot of that. You crybaby conservatives, eat that maple maca. We're going to trounce you. You're done. As the maple commies celebrate, we are going to organize and not cry about it. We are going to move forward. So there's a couple things we talk about. Well, first off, let's do this. Let's do something proper here. Let's look at the official story of the day. And we can get in there first, and we can start from there. So obviously this broke last night, and this was, I'll be honest, this is say what you want about Lori and what she did. At the very minimum, at least she told the leader of her party first, who then issued a statement. And this is what the statement said. We are very disappointed that Lori Adol has decided to join the Liberal caucus. The position of the New Democrats on floor crossing is longstanding and clear. We believe that when someone rejects the decision of their electors and wants to join another party, they should put that decision to their voters. In a democracy, something as important as the choice of party representation in Parliament must always remain with our constituents. We believe that should happen here. And, I tend to agree. And I'm sure much of the chat also agrees. And it's funny how this is all coming to the forefront, because I think it's, what was it? A vote in 2011, or was it 2014? One of the two, where the Conservatives had an opportunity to vote against floor crossing, and they decided to make sure they kept allowed floor crossing in our system. And so now we are now paying the price all these years later. So we have had what now? 3 Conservative floor crossers, 1 NDP floor crosser. And if I'm being quite honest with you, Lori, I think Mark Carney has another trip planned. He's going over, where was it again? He's going to Norway as a piece of it. And there's another, I think he might be doing, I can't remember. I think he might be the UK, something. Anyways, he's doing another round, not just going to Norway. He's going to a few other countries on that trip as well. And if I don't see Lori on that trip, she did a bad deal, man. She did a bad deal. But I will laugh so hard if she ends up on that trip. And the reason why I laugh is because now I'm speaking as a Nova Scotian, or I'm someone who lives in Nova Scotia, I should say. I loathe what Chris D'Entremont did. Loathe what he did. And I will continue to laugh in that man's face if Lori ends up on this trip with Mark Carney. And realizing that, man, D'Entremont really got the worst deal of all the floor crossers, man. This guy really sold his soul to the devil and got nothing in return. I was like, yikes, that's tough. That's tough. So, and then people also wanted to bring up this issue as well. Let's see, I think it's somewhere in here. Let me pull this up. And there it is. Mackenzie Gray reported this as well, says 2 things to consider. Ildo endorsed A.V. Lewis in the NDP leadership race last week at a big event in Ottawa. Carney's going to Yellowknife. Oh, there it is. That's where it is. Carney's going to Yellowknife, Norway, and the UK starting Thursday. If Ildo cut a deal like Ma and Jen Rue did, she'll likely be on that trip. And people are like, how can you endorse A.V. Lewis and then leave the party? Leave the party. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of speculation of what is been agreed upon, the deals that have taken place. I think the one thing I'll say is this. The one thing that has annoyed me, I'll say this. One thing that has annoyed me through this is seeing everyone, conservatives and liberal alike, saying this right now, that Mark Carney is an underrated politician. Underrated. I think even, Steve Reed or Scott Reed, that jabroni for CTV was saying that too. Oh man, the central bankers turned into such a great politician. He's awesome. I was like, dude, no, this guy sucks. This guy sucks. He sucks as a politician. He's terrible. What did you do? Flip-flop on one of the most critical issues, the Iranian conflict, 5 times inside of a week? 5 times. You flipped. Insane. 5. It's still crazy to me. You can't see me is what he was saying with that 5. Blah. That's what was happening there. And with that is the fact that that's a politician for you. He sucks at politics. When you flip 5 times on a critical issue, that shows you're a bad politician. Sorry to say. He shows he flip-flops, doesn't give straight answers, doesn't know really. He seems uncertain a lot of the times on what he's talking about. That's not a good politician. However, he is an exceptional businessman. Business savvy, because all these deals, people like to conflate what's happening. Oh, it means he's a good politician because he's unifying the coalition. Conservatives and NDP are all coming over. You realize that not one of the people actually crossed for ideological reasons. They all crossed because they got something. In D'Entremont's case, he didn't get anything overtly. He got job security. He thought they were going to an election before December. He thought he was going to lose his riding, so he crossed. You have the likes of Michael Ma, who says, Pierre Poilievre leadership, and didn't name Pierre Poilievre, but the leadership is kind of questionable. I want to work with Mark Carney on doing things. Okay. Then all of a sudden he's on a trip with to meet Xi Jinping and rumored to be an ambassador to China. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. The Matt Jeneroux crosses. And that all confusion that happened. Oh, I'm not going, now I'm going, and, lied to everybody in the process. My family, and it really wasn't about his family. And then he ends up on a trip. He gets a new position, gets a new title, and then gets to go on a trip to Japan, Australia, and India. And now you have Lori Do, which I'm sure will come out with what she was offered. After saying, I'm with the NDP, I'll never cross, then crosses something. Something clearly was delivered to her. All these people crossed because something was given to them. This was all a business transaction. None of this was political or ideological, meaning he's not a good politician, but he's a good businessman. And now we have a central banker running our politics. That's what Canada, the Liberals, I should say, Liberal Canada voted for. You want a democracy. Trump's going to take our democracy. And you voted the guy in who's snatching it before your very eyes. You sweet little fools. That's what we're witnessing right now. And so that's me summing things up. So before I get into, what do we move forward with? How do things go? Let's talk about this. So as I said, as a show, I've been ready for this moment for quite some time. And I knew this was going to happen. So if you want to, actually, let's pull this up right now. We haven't updated our URLs yet, so that's on me, but I'm going to post this in the chat. Here is our website. Hopefully it's clickable. We're going to pin that message to the top. We know what's going to happen. April 13th by-election, likely it'll go to Liberal. They'll have their majority. April 14th, all the censorship bills are going to be lined up. I think is also someone was mentioning that the fact that Mark Carney could likely prorogue Parliament and reset the agenda, and then he's going to line up these bills, line up all the committees the way he wants them, and then just one after the other, censorship, boom, 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 boom. So if people have been having issues now, you think you've had problems now finding my show, that you don't get notified, you don't see it on the homepage, it's about to get worse. Sorry to say. So if you want to continue getting the show and be able to have access to the show, if you go over to our website, elevatepodcast.ca, because I haven't switched the domain over, you can go down on the right-hand side of the website. It says find out when we post, merch drops, and more. Put your first name and your email. You'll be added to our email list. And I'm in the process of building out our own platform to host our content on. And as well, we'll start shifting things over to Rumble as well to get ready for the transition when the censorship clampdown eventually comes. So that's what we'll be doing. So if you want to stay in contact, make sure you go over there, hit your first name, hit your email. And because I believe now, and I think it's rightfully so, my time on YouTube is going to be, days are numbered. Because of the way this Liberal government operates, they want to silence all dissent, and we now have to work in such a way that now we have to work around the censorship they're going to try and perpetuate on us. So go over to elevatepodcast.ca, put your first name in and your email if you want to stay connected and still get access to the show. We are starting to build up our email list, and because this is the thing is, me, one of the phrases and sentences, expressions I live by, always have lived by since I was in high school. It's something I really believe in, is that excuses are for losers. So you can sit and you can whine about, oh man, not fair. What do we do? Who's going to come save us? Or we can start taking things in our own hands, because clearly no one's here to save us. The Conservative Party failed us in the last election because they got scared. And now they're doing all the right things now, but it's a day late and a dollar short, unfortunately. Love what they're doing, love what they're bringing to the table. However, it just is a little late, unfortunately, and now we're paying the price for it. So who is going to come save you? Well, there's a couple things we can address here and think about as we are thinking about how to move forward. There are some people who would suggest that, things are still, fight through the Senate, the House. You can still fight through the Senate. Yeah, you can do that. But the Senate's been completely purchased and bought off by the Trudeau before he left office. So the Senate is corrupted. I'm going to tell you straight up right there. So the House will end up eventually being owned by Liberals. The Senate is owned by Liberals. It's clear with guys like Wen Pao Wu running around, fighting the good fight for the CCP as a Canadian senator, and nothing's done to him. That shows you who owns the Senate. This is what's currently going on. Josh, you're painting a bleak picture. And I said, yes, I'm just painting a realistic picture of what we're dealing with. How do you fight back? Well, first off, I think one thing we can think of is let's look at what Danielle Smith has been doing. Danielle Smith is fighting for what does they call it? A sovereign Alberta and a unified Canada, something along those lines, and is really fighting against federal control. And here's the thing, is federal laws are only effective if people are governed by them. If you reject what's coming your way, well, it becomes ineffective. We're seeing that with Danielle Smith, who has been rejecting the Mark Carney government and the Trudeau government as well. And they are just kind of like, yeah, we're not going to enforce your gun buyback program. We are going to take ownership of the authorities in our province. We are going to have the likes of castle law in our province. These are things that we're going to do, and you can fight us on it. Do not care. We'll go to the ends of the earth and all the courts to fight you on this because we will win. That is a woman who is willing to fight for you. What if all provinces, or at least a lot of provinces, were doing that? We're starting to see shifts happen in BC right now, folks, because of the land issue. When people have uncertainty about their land ownership, all of a sudden their provincial or their taste in policies start changing. And those swings are starting to shift. So eyes on BC to have a very strong leader in BC right now. And that will lead the Conservative Party, that will lead a Danielle Smith style way to fight against the federal government. That would be huge. So you could have the likes of Danielle Smith and whoever ends up leading the BC Conservatives and hopefully wins the BC province now doing the same thing against the federal government. Saskatchewan's a bit iffy right now because right now, unfortunately, China and Carney has Scott Moe over the barrel. However, what threat is most scary to someone like Scott Moe? Is it the threat of Mark Carney, or is it the threat of the people? And by threat, I mean you getting voted out. What is more scary to someone like Scott Moe? So mobilizing and motivating and fighting and urging your provincial government to take strong stances against the federal government is something we can also do. And I know there's some great organizers, grassroots in Saskatchewan, who can organize and put some significant pressure on the likes of the provincial government there to fight back. So there you go. You have BC, you have Alberta, you have Saskatchewan now, all fighting back against the federal government, saying, no, we are not implementing your draconian laws. And Manitoba, well, they're a lost cause, sorry. But what I'm saying is you can make enough noise in your province to push back. And the reason why we don't see much going on in Ontario is because Ontarians don't demand for much. They don't demand better of their leaders. Grassroots, on-the-ground mobilization is going to be critical in Ontario. Give them a decent candidate, someone who's not dug for it, someone who has principle, who wants to fight for Ontarians and also fight against the likes of whatever's going to come down from the federal government is crucial. But this is the problem, is we're seeing this right now even in the municipal politics in Toronto. You have the likes of John Tory entering the fray. Oh, psych, no, he's not entering the fray anymore. So leaves Olivia Chow with the huge lead right now in municipal polling. How? People ask how. Because there's literally nobody who wants to vote. There's nobody in the race against her who anyone wants to vote for. There's no one of consequence who has some serious gall to them. People are looking for inspirational leadership right now. And Toronto's not offering it. There's a gap there. If you want it, we can take it. Change municipal politics. Change provincial politics. All the change can happen at the provincial and municipal levels right now. We saw this here in Nova Scotia, where, I don't know if you're Nova Scotian, you've been seeing a lot of talk these days. We have a very weak premier in Tim Houston here. And you could tell, man. So they announced major budget cuts. And you could tell it was definitely not needed because they're pitching a huge deficit. So they started making cuts. And the left lost their ever-loving minds. And quite frankly, it was just a bad political move from Tim Houston's perspective anyways, because there was other things you could cut before you just started just blank, boom, gone, boom, gone. There was full, senior programs. You had the likes of full art and culture programs, just like everything was like, there was no, hey, we're going to bring it down. We're just like, boom, cut. That program's gone. So everyone lost their ever-loving minds. Meanwhile, they're investing a bunch in healthcare. The problem is no one has the gall to look into what the line items are and what they're paying money in healthcare. And they're wasting so much money in healthcare. There's ways that the dollars can be extended and pushed in healthcare in Nova Scotia, but it's just being thrown away and not being strategically used. So Tim Houston pulls to Justin Trudeau, says, well, you can have the arts and culture programs or you can have healthcare. Which one do you want to have? And unfortunately, the official opposition in our province isn't astute enough to realize, to look into the spending on healthcare and doesn't want to have that fight on healthcare. So they started making a ruckus about all these programs, and they made a ruckus. To the point where Tim Houston came back out and says, oh, okay, we're going to restore these programs. And this is what I'm talking about, is you organize and mobilize enough on the ground in your province. It wasn't that many people here in Nova Scotia that got Tim Houston to shift things. Wasn't much. It won't take much in your province either. It's about putting effective pressure, not being the whiny babies and just being angry. But you have to have a strategy, a point, and a focus of the pressure point you want to hit, and you hit that. You hit the provinces, you take ownership of your provincial politics, your municipal politics. You then get to say, screw you to the federal government, because that's the system we get to work in. Yes, Mark Carney is obeying the rules. He's doing things by the law. There's a lot of loopholes in those laws, but he's doing it. He's working within the margins. You can do that too, and we can. You can affect your provincial government to the point where whatever the federal government passes just doesn't matter. Become ungovernable. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a couple things we can do. We have weaponized incompetence. We have the likes where you just act aloof and do not obey whatever laws they come down the pipe with that are just simply taking away your rights. Just weaponized incompetence. Oh, sorry, didn't know. Or we have malicious compliance is another one, where you obey to the letter of the law to the point it just gives them such a hard time. The key is this: become ungovernable. How do you do that? You just say no. Let's give an example. First example is the gun buyback program we're seeing across the country. They're trying to buy back your guns. And you're saying, no, screw you. And that's happening across the province. That's happening across the country in different provinces, in different municipalities. They're all saying no. And guess what? All party colors, all party stripes, doesn't matter, are all standing down, saying we're not going to bother because it is too tough of a fight, not worth it. I'm saying no. The key is, though, and the big reason for that is because people organized. You have the likes of the CCFR, Tracy Wilson, who's been doing incredible work with the CCFR and working with these different groups across the country to fight and say no. It's key to mobilize. And there's key people in every province. I've been talking to them. They can mobilize, they can move, and you can just say no. So the next draconian law that comes down the pipe, sorry, don't care, not listening. Become ungovernable. That's how you operate. That's how you operate. There's a fourth option too. And this is the one where this is going to get the people going. But this is the one people are coming up to me with as well. What if all conservative, motivated people just decide to move to Alberta this year and decide to vote on independence and force Alberta out? And then you have a place for the people who do believe in conservative values can live in this country and reject and be the one province who just rejects everything and maintains borders. That's another thing people are bringing up and talking about. These are things that can happen, could happen. This is, in some cases, radical. Some cases, people don't think it goes far enough. These are just thoughts. These are things that could happen. You could do. You could try. There's nothing I'm saying that's illegal. Nothing I'm suggesting that's illegal. I'm just saying this is how you exercise your rights against a totalitarian government. Oh, Josh, that's over the line. You're exaggerating. Am I? First off, are you better off now than you were 10 years ago? Do you feel more free to speak than you did 10 years ago? Do you have the ability to go on a vacation like you did 10 years ago? No? Okay. You're living in a less free society. And you look at all the bills that the Conservatives have been fighting through a minority government from coming in. And guess what? They're coming in. They're going to be coming in. And I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, baby. We're ready to go. We're going to fight this lawfully, but we are going to stand up for our rights, baby. And you can do one of two things. Absolutely nothing and like it. I'll leave it there for a second. Because I've been talking for literally 30 minutes straight. Let's hit the super chat, see what you guys are saying, because I still have a whole show to get to here, folks. There's still a lot to talk about. Old Man Gardening says, oh, shoot. Steeny B says, take action, support your conservative EDA. That's another big one. Yes. Some of these conservative EDAs I've been talking to across the country, some are doing well, some are hurting. Some of those just need really good people to start getting things moving again. There's some very old, stodgy people in some of these EDAs that just, I don't know. They need some fresh blood and get them motivated. So that's a great point too. Get involved in the conservative EDA, get things going on the grassroots level for sure. Ramoth 9143 says, I really don't understand how they can be elected based on a certain platform, then totally disregard it, but still keep their seat. Changing parties should result in an immediate by-election. You make a great point. And that is the age-old debate that we are going to see play out here, is who does the seat belong to? Does the seat belong to the MP elected, or does the seat belong to the people? That's the conversation, that's the debate that people are having, and people will continue to have. I tend to align with what Ramoth is saying here, is that, yeah, I agree. Floor crossing really wasn't given too much of a thought in the past, I'm being honest, because we didn't need to. There was never really a time where floor crossing happened where it was really consequential, really, at all. And it really kind of was like, meh, it was what it was. You know, it may have like flipped a couple seats here and there, but didn't really have a difference between a minority government and majority government. This is the first time it's happening in our country's history. So naturally, especially when you have a country that is as divided as it is right now politically, well, now that question's now coming up. This isn't right. It should be different. Politics actually has consequences now for people, and that's why the debates are happening now. Just Me Nicole says, if you don't believe that they were quote-unquote bought to cross over, ask yourself, would you change jobs if there was no advantage to doing it? Yep. Talk about that. I mean, there's also the advantage of being in the governing party. You get more resources. It's also a boost to your resume. There's a lot of that too, that there's some motive there, but that's typically not enough to become a pariah to your party. Michelle C9I says, unfortunately, Canada is going to get much harder for a while before it can get better. That's kind of where my head's at. Yes, I'm just going to acknowledge the reality. It's going to get harder, folks. And unfortunately, there's no one here to save us. And now it's time to get it organized. And shows like ours needs to be on the forefront of doing that. And I'll take responsibility on that too. And we need to get things moving for sure. Old Man Gardening says, first time super chat. Let's go. We're talking another 3 years of this clown show. If the Liberals allow another election, I'm still convinced that elections Canada is corrupt as hell. Prepare yourselves. Honestly, I'm not going to stand here and belittle your cynicism. I understand why you feel that way. I totally get it. You have been used and abused and lied to for far too long. And now your question is like many, what's the point? And unfortunately, that's what many people are feeling. That's what I want to try and motivate people, because I want to motivate people, let them know they do have options. It's just whether they are willing to exercise those options, because it gets uncomfortable very quick when you do. Lucky Dice 78 says the budget is going to look a lot worse if Alberta departs Confederation. Yeah, sure will. Sure will. Awesome. All right, we're going to move on to our next, some things to think about here. So, next thing to think about is the fact of Carney's majority, or if he lands a majority government, April 13th concludes, they land a majority. What happens? This is one thing I shared about months ago. This is an article that was posted back in November, I believe, by Cian Bexty of Juno News, letting people know, hey, yes, you get a majority. In some ways, this is actually a little bit more dangerous territory for Mark Carney to be in, because it's a very delicate majority. And what I mean by that is, well, there's a few things, and I'll share the article that Cian Bexty shared here. And these are things to kind of think through before we move forward here. So this, again, keep in mind, this was written December. So just a handful of months ago, when the heat of the Michael Moss stuff was hidden. So he says this: anyone who thinks the danger to Carney comes from the opposition is missing the point. If Carney ends up with 172 seats, the threat is entirely internal. Every MP knows it. Every faction understands the math. Every grievance becomes leverage. And we already saw that with this Liberal government. There's a reason why Mark Carney's flip-flopped a billion times on Iran. Because, yes, he's got a big tent, but he hasn't unified anyone underneath a specific ideology or policy. It's been money and leverage. That's how he's put this party together, this coalition together. So there's something that's going to have to be paid for that. So it goes on. Every faction understands the math. Every grievance becomes leverage. And this cuts both ways. If Carney secures a majority, he also loses his shield. There's no more blaming Pierre Poilievre. There's no more blaming the parliamentary budget officer. There's no more blaming obstruction. There's no more blaming instability. The buck stops with him. This is not a trivial shift. It means every failure belongs to him. Every broken promise, every delayed project, every half measure, and he will be explaining those failures with a caucus that is already more fractured than the Conservatives, floor crossers included. The media currently treats Pierre Poilievre as though he's barely holding together a shadow government. That framing is nonsense. A shadow government is not real. It has no power. It cannot bring down the House. Carney's caucus can, though. This is the only thing that matters. And then there's the reality. MPs are human. People get sick. People can resign. People miss flights. People are sent on diplomatic missions. Someone could unexpectedly die, sadly. These are not hypotheticals. They are inevitabilities over the life of Parliament. Margaret Thatcher started her long tenure thanks to one deathly ill Labour MP. In a one-seat majority, in any of those moments can become catastrophic. At that point, 172 people could each possess the power to topple a federal government. And when it finally happens, Carney will be left standing in front of Canadians explaining how little he got done with all that supposed power. So to the next Conservative being courted quietly in a hallway or over dinner at convention, understand that you are being asked, or what you're being asked to become. Not a stabilizer, not a builder, not a kingmaker, a hostage. And history shows how those stories usually end. Boom. He's spot on. And now this is becoming essentially inevitable and becoming a reality. Is that, yes, Mark Carney on the face of it right now is Partey Mark Carney. But his government has now become all the more delicate because he's brought all these snakes in the tall grass are in now. And everyone has a different ideology and perspective. We saw how they were freaking out over the Iran stuff, like everything that we saw over the India stuff, we saw it over the Iranian stuff. That when it comes to controversial issues, Mark Carney says something, then his caucus pipes up over here. And then he's like, oh, sorry, actually, with regret. And they're, oh, I mean this. Oh, they're always in his ear. He's got bunny ears, dude. He's got bunny ears. He's going to have to because it's such a delicate coalition now. And now, April 13th comes and goes. Say they secure a majority. The excuses are out the window, baby. Yes, the negative side for us is all the censorship bills are going to come in and we're going to have to deal with that. The other side of it, though, is Carney's going to get probably next to nothing done. And then the excuses are, what are the excuses going to be? People are going to still be suffering. And will they still be able to run out the Trump train? Maybe. But when you have a majority government and there's only really one thing you can blame is Trump. You can't blame the conservatives anymore, which is the second thing they keep blaming. We're in for a rough beginning. That on top of the fact that you start getting a population, like we discussed earlier, who starts letting their voices be known and making it very hard for the federal government to operate because they simply won't obey their draconian laws. Oh, baby. We have the recipe for change among us. That's what I have to say about that. We had here, DASP244 says, is Pierre done? 3 years. Will the party keep him? That is a question that I'm sure people are going to have. We won't really have that answer until probably April 13th, April 14th, depending on what happens. There's two perspectives on this. And I've talked to people who are strong believers in both of them. There's one belief that's like, this gives Pierre Poilievre a time to reset, recalibrate, get things going for 3 years, and hit the ground running for the next election. Gives them time to breathe, figure things out, and not just be in this constant fog of craziness with floor crossers and nonsense. Or there's two. The Conservative Party decides to oust him. And they try to find somebody else. I, unfortunately, wish I looked into the details of that. I don't think they can do that right now. They can. I mean, I guess anything's possible. They can get hostile and throw him out. But they already had their leadership review. He passed it with flying colors. So he's their leader. So I think it's more likely is the former what's going to happen is he's going to have time to breathe, recalibrate, and figure out how he wants to attack the next 3 years while still being the official opposition, but figure out how to win an election at the federal level. So we'll see. Great question, though. It's a very good question. Lazarus says, said it the other day and saying it now. This is going to come down said it the other day and saying it now. This is going to come down to a civil movement that is going to lead to violence. Once it gets even worse here, people have never been pushed like this before. That's a perspective. I mean, anything's possible for sure. We have even the likes of some of those studies that came out, right? From, I can't remember the name of the study, but it was overseen by the federal government of all the prediction of what can happen. I think it was 10 years from now, where people are going to be scavenging for food. We're going to have gated communities all over the place. That was predicted by a study done under the oversight of the federal government. So there's high likelihood that even the federal government actually shares your perspective here, that things could get very ugly. They could. No one's been pushed this way. And when you start pushing desperate people, things can get wild. That's just how things go, unfortunately. Libby T says, liberals always saying conservatives are fighting within the party. Call it projection when it's liberals that have fights in their ranks. It's true. We had Scott Reed the other day. I should pull this up here. Scott Reed the other day on CTV. Actually, no, it wasn't CTV. He was on a podcast, and they were talking about the Hill Times, talking about how the caucus was really upset with Mark Carney talking on the Iranian issue without consulting them. And actually, I'll pull that up because that's a fun one to share. Let's do that here. That's it. Yeah, here it is. It says what they took offense to the Hill Times reporting on this, the fact that there's members of the Liberal caucus that had anything to say about Mark Carney's stance on Iran. And listen to Scott Reed's stance on this. And this goes back to the super chat we just read and the projection that happens from this party.
But I look at the Hill Times with people and they run to the Hill Times, so it's like something that's covered by like 4 blocks, right? And I'm not dissing the Hill Times, love it, but they run to the Hill Times and go, well, I'm not very happy. I expect to be briefed in advance.
It's an important service, but it's not a broad reach.
Right. And it's sort of, it's like, I expect to be consulted in advance. Really? I expect you to be grateful. I expect you to be very grateful. You would be fucking working, right? You'd be selling teen burgers right now, man. Come on.
That's the perspective of those in the Liberal Party. You dare speak against Mark Carney, him and all his cronies, like Scott Reed here, are just going to tear you down, rip you apart, because you dare question him. You should be grateful I'm here. Grateful that I've even given you an opportunity. And Scott Reed's going to hop on a stupid little podcast, hop on CTV, and bloviate about the same stupidity. Projection is correct on that super chat. This is how they operate in their ranks. They talk about the Liberal Party infighting, intimidation, this, that, the other. This is exactly what they do. The only problem is they also have the media in their pocket to also do their bidding, which would make the life of anyone a living hell if they speak out against them. How dare you speak? You're going to be selling teen burgers right now. And to rip the Hill Times in the process, too. It's like, for someone who relies, so much on the media establishment for a living, Scott Reed, that seems like a weird thing to do to your colleagues. And Stuart Benson said, for clarification, the Hill Times, 4 blocks of coverage are West, Center, East, and the Senate. But thanks for the shout out. Stu getting a little sassy there, and understandably so. So that's how that I understand. It is projection. It 100% is projection. That's how they operate. Nylock says this: with the ship sinking, just know you and Reg are welcome in Alberta. Let me know your sizes. I have some I Am Alberta hoodies for you to sport. I'm sure Reg will take that with open arms. I'm pretty sure Reg just said it on the show. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. But Reg is definitely getting more on board with Alberta independence by the day. Him and his Nova Scotian self. Man was born in New Brunswick, has lived in Nova Scotia most of his adult life, and he is definitely getting closer to Alberta independence. He's definitely becoming one. He's becoming one. He wants to do a few things first, but yeah. And I see Arena 00Z in this general chat says, we need a conservative mainstream media channel with Jasmine, Josh, David, and a few others. The problem is we have very strict rules, the CRTC here. And if we ever did that, then we start having to obey CRTC rules, and they're very weird. I'm curious how Rebel ends up navigating a lot of that. But Rebel's always they're always in legal issues and disputes, and this is nothing I have any interest in being a part of. So as soon as you start becoming an entity that is media or news, CRTC gets involved very quickly. And that's why it's best to be independent and separate from each other so that we can actually get our words out. But I understand the sentiment. Very much understand the sentiment. But we move on because we talked about, again, the response of what's going on here. So Rosemary Barton. So we saw yesterday, right? We had Rosemary Barton, David Cochran getting called out by Travis Dunrodge in committee hearing, and he lived up to what the video was all about, that he was going to name names, and he did name David Cochran and Rosemary Barton and their control over situations at the CBC. And they were desperately waiting for something to distract the population. And so when Lori crossed the floor, they're just like, oh, praise God. Because then Rosemary Barton, really quick, put out Don Davies' statement and just said, another one. All right. DJ Khaled. All right, Rosie. Go off, I guess. And so there's actually like an individual pipes up. Oh, is it Society Unveiled? This is the best part about this, okay? Society Unveiled follows us. Let's go. Follows us. Give him a shout out. Said this: corrupt liberals are stealing a majority government and morons like you act like it's normal. Just a random person with 196 followers on X saying that, okay? I'll be honest with you. When I'm on social media and people are piping up on me on social media and I see how many followers I got, I typically don't listen to them. I don't pay them attention because that's all they want. But apparently people got in Rosie's head yesterday. They got in her head because she felt it necessary, as one of the lead analysts at the CBC, felt it necessary to defend her stance to an individual under the pseudonym of Society Unveiled with 196 followers, saying this: bro, you may not like it, but it's allowed. 260,000 followers on X. Had to defend her position and say, bro, you may not like it, but it's allowed. That's loser behavior. That is loser behavior. Funny, though. Funny. That this is what they do, man. They obviously were not stoked about Travis Dunrodge's testimony yesterday. Had to get something to distract from it. And they're pumped at the CBC right now that Mark Carney's this close to majority. They're pumped. It's like, oh, our plan's been working. It's been working. Yeah, let's get after it. And so we move over to the likes of Travis Dunrodge's testimony yesterday. And David Cochran had something to say about this. He was interviewed and he gave a statement on this. And I believe I have it down here. Here it is. In a brief interview after Tuesday's hearing, Cochran, who is currently on medical leave from the CBC, okay, maybe there's something really wrong. I don't know. Strange timing, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Medical leave from the CBC explained that Power of Politics has an explicit mandate to cover Canadian politics and generally gets first priority on booking political guests. The show has a roster of regular panel contributors that are paid by the CBC for their consistency, if not their exclusivity, he said. Cochran continued to say that per the company-wide policy, hosts and shows are expected to respect those mandates and programming needs. Without coordinating guests, he said the booking process can devolve into duplicated efforts and confusion. As for Dunrodge's former show, Canada Tonight, Cochran made clear that he was never involved in the booking process and is not aware of what specific guardrails they negotiated. All the conversations between my show and Canada Tonight were done above the host level between producers and managers. In an amended statement following publication of the story, Thompson, the CBC spokesperson, clarified that booking MPs is done in coordination with Power and Politics to ensure there is representation from all three major parties. So that is the statement from David Cochran. And man, it was funny seeing liberals pop off on this on social media yesterday. See, Travis is just speaking out of turn. He's lying. He's lost his mind. He's become weird. He's become weird. And I'm reading this, and I'm reading, where's the lie, though? Travis Dunraj said very clearly that shows like Rosemary Barton's and Power and Politics with David Cochran get first say of guests. And they try to have a representation from all parties. And we can get into what that actually looks like. And Travis is like, yeah, I understand that. I was looking at booking specific guests like Pierre Poilievre and was said, no. No. He didn't go on your show anytime soon after that. So where was the duplicated effort? Well, because this is all smoke and mirrors and lying. There is seriously a culture issue at the CBC. And it's just not Travis coming out. He's not just some disgruntled employee. There is plenty of people, and slowly but surely you'll see more start coming out of their issues with the CBC and what their practices are. It's clear that Rosemary Barton and David Cochran get a say and dominate what things happen at the CBC in terms of at least the national news side of things. And anyone who steps out of line will be swiftly put back in line. Oh, everything's dealt with, with managers and producers. Yeah. But no conversations are had about the off-the-record conversations, are there? I'm sure there's a lot of on-the-record conversations between producers, managers, and all that. But I'm sure there's a plenty off-record conversations that happen that you just act like don't exist. That's the tension. And then to say as well, we have people from all parties come on our show. Yeah, Fred DeLore, conservative. As you then pound. Like, oh yeah, Andrew Coyne, conservative. Come on, man. What are we doing here? These are the people they think there's like, oh, there's a diversity of thought. These are our conservative representatives. I'll give CBC credit for 2 people that they bring on. 2. Kate Harrison, Lisa Raitt. That's it. That's it. Match that compared to the amount of liberals they bring on. It's just stand in comparison to the amount of liberals that come on that show. But we have representation across all the parties. Yes, this is how the CBC works. This is how they do. They claim they do. They do just enough to say they can claim that. But there's no real effort into having equal voices at the table. And that was the conversation and the complaint Travis Dunraj had made. And this, of course, was a predictable response from David Cochran, who is on medical leave. Got it. Sounds good. So we'll finish off with this. To give you a taste to get yourself ready for what it's going to look like once the Liberals land a majority government. You're going to start seeing more of this. Reported by Backlash. Only favored press allowed. Immigration Minister Lena Diab's office yesterday declined comment over its refusal to speak to independent media. Only newsrooms that meet criteria for government approval will be granted questions. According to a Department of Immigration notice, the department must be satisfied. You're going to start seeing a lot more of this. Ministers all of a sudden being unavailable to media that you tune into because they need to approve them and they need to meet specific criteria in order to respond to questions. And even then, they won't respond to questions. And a lot of people are saying this. And people who are defending it forget that they're the ones who were very upset. The CBC got really upset when Stephen Harper did something very similar in his early days. I pulled this CBC article from 2011. Failing grade for government on information access. When it comes to access to information, Prime Minister Stephen Harper's government has received a failing grade, as a new report that also urges Canadians to remain vigilant on their freedom of expression. For the second year running, the report by the Canadian Journalists for Free Expression has given the government an F-, saying delays in the release of information lengthened and what was eventually released was less complete than before. The report, titled Like Sheep to the Slaughter, points to the public works bureaucrats' move to unrelease information to the Canadian press as an example of why Canada now ranks among 5 leading democracies when it comes to access to information. So you read that, and this was 2011. Around 2014, 2015, this stuff like this was really what did Stephen Harper in and lost the election to Justin Trudeau. This is a Tuesday with this government now. Like, it's just normal for this government now. This is just like, it's a mosquito in comparison to everything else this government's been doing. So expect more of this, folks. Expect more of Lina Diab not being able to talk to media. First off, because she can't talk to media. She doesn't know how to speak and doesn't know how to reason her stances. So she is always made to look like a fool. She's now being obviously likely taking coaching, so to learn how to answer questions from Michelle Rumpel-Garner in committee. And oh baby, we're in for a good time here, folks. And this is why I say this. I'm not in a stance of feeling defeated or being down or being sad. It's just a setback. And you can choose to how you want to respond. I laid out some options of how we can respond and how I am in the process of working with a variety of groups right now of organizing on the ground to make sure that we keep our rights here in this country. And I'll be letting people know in the days to come what that's going to look like, how that all operates, and how that can go. But you can either, sit like a bump on the log and be sad, or we can get to action and push against the draconian measures they're going to look to try and bring in. So I got the last minute super chats, and we'll leave it there for the day, for the morning. David, the Crom King, says, I saw the news last night and just laughed. Now the libs get to sit with every bad policy they push through. Ironically, I think this will be a good thing long term, but will suck for a period of time. Never lose hope, folks. Agreed. And that kind of goes back to what I was stating with the article from Kian Bexty, is Mark Carney's when this all happens, will be in a much more fragile condition. So whatever happens with Kuzma, ooh. Good luck. And then David Cromking followed that up with joining and becoming a member of the Elevate Faithful. Yeehaw, baby. Lazarus 8447 says Cons and NDP want to put oil in the Libs by-elections. Wait. Cons and NDP want to put oil in the Libs by-elections. Point out all the dictator laws the Libs will do if they get a majority. Go on MSM and do it all before the by-elections. Point it out all before. Agreed. I'm not saying we accept this. They're probably going to win. Put a solid effort forward. Treat this like a general election. Try to see if you can make a flip. Because anything's possible. Put your best effort forward in every way you can. 100% agree with that. But also talking in the likelihood that things don't go the way we'd hope. Well, there's other ways that we can make our voices heard in a legal fashion that will make people a little uncomfortable. But sometimes it's good. It's good to be uncomfortable, folks. And I'll finish off with this. As a reminder, if you go to, as it's pinned here at the top in the chat, elevatepodcast.ca. You head over there on the right-hand side where it says find out where we post merch drops and more. Enter your first name and your email if you want to stay in contact for the inevitability that we start getting drowned and silenced out. We will stay in contact with you there and manage and weather this storm together. So I say that by saying, hey, Reg is back in the chat. Love to see you, Reg. I'm glad you came back just in time for me to say whatever it is you're doing, whether you be at the gym, having a nice breakfast, or at work, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are. We love you. I'm out. Peace.